Has it ever occurred to you to face someone for the first time and, without saying a single word, feel as if something inside you already knew that person? There were no name changes, no uncomfortable formalities, just a deep and inexplicable serenity, as if his heart whispered softly, "Here, you are safe." This is not luck, nor is it an accident of chance. According to Carl Jung, this phenomenon is called synchronicity, the meeting of two souls that align not by coincidence, but by vibrating at the same inner frequency. It's something unusual, intense, and when it happens, the rest of the world seems to disappear. The dialogues naturally deepen, and even the silence turns into a comfortable shelter. There is no need for masks, no justifications, because this person does not only hear your words, they perceive your energy. But it is necessary to say something that many are reluctant to accept. Not every deep connection is destined to remain. Some people don't show up to stay, but to awaken forgotten parts of us. They come like storms, intense, striking, and before you know it, they're gone, leaving behind questions, clarity, and sometimes a heart mark that never fully heals. How to know then? How to distinguish if that person is your soul mate or just a reflection of your wounds, a mirror of your still incomplete growth? Let's explore this point, as the truth is that certain connections are part of our path, while others are valuable lessons. Without this clarity, it is easy to drift away from a true presence, while clinging to passing shadows. The heart, unlike clocks, is never late. What you recognize in the other is often an image of your own essence. Carl Jung said that, behind our conscious choices, there is an invisible thread that unites souls through vibration and energy. When this thread fits, two beings connect in tune, even if they are not aware of it. Relationships are usually born out of logic, common interests, physical attraction, or shared time. But truly transformative bonds emerge in silence, an energetic connection, subtle but undeniable. That's why we can meet hundreds of people without feeling anything special, until we find someone who touches us deeply with just one look. It is not about the surface, but about the resonance between souls. It is as if your soul were a musical instrument, and the presence of that person activated a dormant note. Suddenly, a part of you awakens. It's not that this person brings something new, it just reflects what already existed but was hidden. You don't exactly fall in love with her, but rather with who you become next to her. Maybe she sees his delicacy in a world that has made him hard. Maybe it challenges you in ways that are scary, but that lead you to growth. Perhaps it brings out his unhealed pain, forcing him, finally, to confront it. That's the true beauty of synchronicity. It does not involve ideal circumstances, but a meeting at an opportune moment for the soul. These people appear when their essence is ready, not when everything is resolved, but when there is room for a deeper truth. They do not come to stay. They arrive as mirrors, as guides, as flames that illuminate dormant parts of the being. They rock your world not to destroy it, but to remind you of who you are, or rather, who you have always been but had forgotten. So the next time someone comes along and it feels like it's fate, ask yourself, what is that person reflecting inside of me? Because the time of the soul is never wrong, and every encounter has a meaning if you are able to listen carefully. Until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will lead your life, and you will call it destiny. Carl Jung didn't just study the soul, he understood it in its complexity. Now, reflect. Have you analyzed your past relationships and noticed that you continue to attract the same type of pain? Different faces, different stories, but the same pattern: rejection, abandonment, coldness. This is not a whim of chance, it is a reflection of unhealed wounds. Most people believe that they attract what they want. However, in fact, we attract what we are, or rather, what has not yet been healed in us. If you carry childhood traumas linked to the feeling of not being enough, you will find someone who treats you exactly like that. If it fears abandonment, it will unconsciously seek out those who tend to leave. If your self-esteem is unstable, you will attract those who constantly question your worth. It is not punishment. It is the soul trying to send warning signals. Pain does not arise to punish, it is a teacher. Each relationship that ends abruptly is pointing to a wound that is still open. Each person who leaves is showing you where you still need attention. But, unfortunately, not everyone hears this call. Many blame others, curse love, close themselves off to new experiences. When, in fact, the problem is not in the other, it is in the reflection that he presents. Difficult relationships are mirrors. They do not create traumas, but reveal the existing ones. They show the unfaced fear, the hurt that has been swept under the rug, the stories you repeat about yourself when you are alone. Until you look honestly into this mirror, you will continue to experience the same situations with different people. Those who ignore it reflect their fear of being left. Those who make him chase show his belief that he needs to deserve love. But who do not know how to open up emotionally reveal their own resistance to vulnerability. Each person is a message, each experience is a lesson. And here's a hard truth. You can't heal in the same environment where you were hurt. But it is possible to understand why you were drawn to that pain in the first place, and that's where the healing process begins. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it destiny. Carl Jung, allow me to ask you an intimate question. Have you ever reflected on the relationships of your past and wondered why you keep repeating the same pains with different names, but with the same emotional patterns that drag on like a song crossed out in time? It's not bad luck. It's not just a streak of bad luck in love. What is happening is that the unhealed parts within you are choosing for you. Most of us don't realize that we don't attract exactly what we want. We attract what we are into our deepest interior. We especially attract that which still cries out for healing within us. If you carry childhood wounds that scream that you are not enough, you will find people who reinforce that belief, treating you as if your worth is conditional. If you are afraid of abandonment buried in your subconscious, you will tend to fall in love with those who inevitably drift away. And if your self-esteem is built on a fragile foundation, you will be attracted to those who constantly test your worth. This is not because the universe wants to punish you, but because your soul is urgently trying to get your attention. Pain is not punishment, it is a teacher. Every painful relationship is not a sentence, but a classroom. Each encounter that falls apart is revealing where there is still bleeding, where there are still holes in your emotional integrity that need to be seen. However, instead of listening to this lesson, most of us point the finger. We blame the other person. We say that love is not worth it. We close our hearts. When, in fact, it is not about the other, it is about the reflection that he brought to the surface. Relationships don't create our wounds, they reveal them. They bring to the surface the fears that we try to hide. They unearth the traumas that we never had the courage to face. They show the stories we tell ourselves in silence, in the early mornings when we feel small. And as long as we don't have the courage to look directly into that mirror, not with judgment, but with compassion and clarity, we will continue to recreate the same cycles in different bodies. The people who ignored you are reflecting their own dread of abandonment. Those who made you chase love reveal your unconscious belief that you need to deserve affection. The emotionally unavailable often show their own refusal to be vulnerable. Each person who comes into your life carries a message. Every emotional break is an attempt by the universe to wake you up. And here's a hard but essential truth. You can't heal in the same place where you were hurt. But you can heal yourself by understanding why you were drawn to this pain in the first place. There are people who come to us like storms. They don't ask for permission, they don't send warning, they just emerge. Intense, unexpected, changing everything around them. You weren't looking for them. Maybe it wasn't even ready. But something in their presence makes you feel safe, as if you have come home, as if your soul recognizes them from a time before time. This connection is overwhelming. The chemistry is palpable. The conversations go on for hours, going through the night until the sun begins to rise. The silence between you does not weigh you down, he welcomes. Then you start to believe that this can only be fate, that this person must be the one you were hoping to meet, who maybe is the one. But then suddenly she leaves. And you find yourself staring into the empty space where there was once warmth, trying to understand how something that seemed so right could fall apart so quickly. You begin to doubt. Was it real? Was it just you who felt all this? Was he fantasizing about the connection? But the truth that few have the courage to face is that not every soulmate is here to stay. Yes, it was real. Yes, the connection had a purpose. But that doesn't mean it was meant to last forever. Some souls do not come to build a forever, come to rekindle something that was extinguished inside you. They come when your soul is asleep, when you have forgotten your worth, when you have settled for less than you deserve, when you have hidden your truth so deeply that you no longer recognize your own voice. And these souls come like fire, to burn illusions, to destroy false beliefs, to break what is old and make room for the new. They come to remind you that it is possible to feel it again, even if it hurts. Because the pain they cause is a necessary push for growth. It is easy to confuse intensity with eternity. But just because a connection was intense doesn't mean it should last a lifetime. At times, that person's role was brief but transformative. She came to wake you up. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is a reaction, both are transformed. Carl Jung. We live surrounded by stories that tell us that love should fill a void. That there is a perfect person, a half of the orange, a soul mate who will complete us. But this is a dangerously seductive illusion. No one can complete what you have not yet given yourself. The love that is born of emotional hunger is not love. It is attachment. It is a lack disguised as a connection. It is the desperate attempt to plug a hole that cannot be filled by anyone else. We attract what we are, not what we desire. If you are filled with chaos, confusion, and unresolved wounds, you will attract people who mirror that same chaos, not out of cruelty, but out of vibrational coherence. The energy of the universe responds to your inner frequency, not to your dreams or idealized plans. That is why, so often, the insecure fall in love with those who are far away. The needy connect with the emotionally unavailable. The lonely are content with crumbs. It's not a curse, it's frequency. And the frequency does not lie. When you go through life hungry for love, approval, or rescue, it's inevitable to attract partners who don't offer peace but intensity. And intensity, without balance, is just an uncontrolled flame that consumes everything around. You believe you found passion, but you're just reliving your pain. He thinks it's romance, but it's trauma masked as love. True love does not pulsate as an addiction. He doesn't drag you into the abyss, he anchors you. It really starts when you no longer look for someone to save you, but to share who you already are. And being whole does not mean being perfectly healed. It means not expecting another to carry the weight of your wounds. It means facing your shadows, welcoming your pain, and learning to love yourself like no one else has ever done. When you become complete, you stop running after those who only feed your neediness. He begins to attract those who walk beside him in peace. What once seemed irresistible is now confusing. What used to ignore you no longer seduces you. And those souls who were destined for your healed version finally emerge, as if they were always waiting for you. In the culture of the spectacle, we confuse love with boasting. We believe that the more visible the connection, the more real it is. That if there are no photos, public statements, incessant messages, and grandiose gestures, then maybe it's not even real love. But soul connections speak another language, a silent, subtle one, almost invisible to the eyes of the world. Soul love does not need a stage. He recognizes himself in the look, in the comfortable silence, in the absence of games. He doesn't scream for attention because he already feels seen. It does not require constant proof because it is already deeply felt. It doesn't need to be validated by likes because it finds roots in the internal experience. Spiritually connected people do not love each other out of necessity, but out of harmony. The bond they share is not based on control, but on freedom. They know they can be together without being imprisoned. They know that they can disagree without destroying themselves. They know that they don't need to get lost in the other to feel whole. This type of relationship seems simple at first glance, but it is not shallow. It's deep in a calm way. It is transformative without being chaotic. And what scares those who are still addicted to tumultuous bonds the most is that it doesn't hurt. Mature, spiritual love is not crooked, it is gentle. It is not born of the wound, it is born of conscious choice. But to live a love like this, you have to say goodbye to everything that was familiar, but dysfunctional. It is necessary to leave behind the narratives that said that love should be struggle, conquest, suffering. It is necessary to break the emotional cycle that associates pain with passion. Because as long as your soul is conditioned to confuse intensity with love, it will continue to reject peace when it comes. And peace, when it comes in someone's form, can seem strange. It may seem bland. It may even seem boring to those who have only known affection as a storm. But this peace is what your soul has always sought, even if your mind still does not know how to recognize it. Soul love is not an explosion, it is a home. And when you find him, you discover that you don't have to run away anymore. Carl Jung reminds us that everything we deny in ourselves will be projected onto others. The same goes for love. As long as you do not welcome your wounded parts, you will seek in others what is lacking in you. And so begins the dance of mismatches. Incomplete people trying to complete each other, when what they really need is to return to their own center. Spiritual love begins when you decide to look inward with honesty. When you stop outsourcing your happiness. When you understand that it is no one's job to heal you, validate you, or keep you whole. The other can be a mirror, can be a companion, can be a guide, but he is not your source of salvation. This kind of love is born from a place where there is no more despair. It springs up when you no longer need someone else to choose you, because you have already chosen yourself. And from this choice, it attracts those who are also choosing themselves, and thus they can choose each other without dependence, without fear, without ties. You no longer love to be loved. He loves because love overflows. Because he has found within himself a source so alive that there is no longer any way to contain it. And when two people love each other from that inner abundance, something sacred happens. Love is no longer a burden. It becomes celebration. This is the essence of spiritual love. He does not require sacrifice, but presence. It does not seek perfection, but authenticity. And it is not measured by time, but by depth. You can find that connection in someone you've known for decades or who has just arrived. It may come at an unexpected moment, during a simple everyday encounter, but there will be an immediate recognition, as if two parts of the same book had met again after a long journey. Chapter 7. When spiritual love comes, you're ready. There is no rushing true love. He does not arrive by demand. It arrives when you are vibrating at the same frequency as it. And this frequency is only achieved when you heal, accept yourself, and free yourself from the stories that kept you stuck in the past. Many wait for love as if waiting for rescue, looking out the window, waiting for someone to come down from the heavens to solve everything. But spiritual love does not come to save. He comes to share. It appears when you are no longer at war with yourself, when internal battles gave way to peace, when fear was replaced by trust. At this moment, love does not come like a storm, but like a breeze. It doesn't knock you down, it sustains you. It doesn't blind you, it reveals you. It doesn't hold you back, it sets you free. You look at the person before you and see not a savior but a fellow traveler. Someone who did not come to complete his story, but to walk by his side as they both write new chapters, with respect, truth, affection, and freedom. Spiritual love requires no guarantees. It is sustained by daily delivery, in the will to build, in honest presence, and, above all, in the awareness that loving the other always begins with the act of loving oneself. When that love arrives, there is no doubt. There is no fear disguised as passion. There are no games. There is peace, there is alignment, there is truth. And finally, there is rest, not because the path has ended, but because now, with this soul by your side, walking has become light. There are times in life when we cross someone's path and, without being able to explain it, we feel that something in us awakens. It's not an ordinary passion, it's not just desire or admiration. It's as if a forgotten part of our essence has been touched by something greater. Carl Jung teaches us that the soul recognizes symbols, archetypes, and images that evoke deep, often unconscious, realities. And in certain people, we find these vivid images. It is not a matter of idealizing or projecting. It is a matter of recognizing, in the other, a mirror of the sacred, a reflection of what lies dormant within us. This kind of connection isn't just emotional or intellectual, it's archetypal. It moves us because it activates something ancestral, which resides in our deepest layers. a reunion that seems to have crossed times and existences. These souls that awaken us have the power to lead us to transformations. They confront us with our fears, but they also remind us of what we are capable of loving and living fully. They are catalysts for change, not because they force us, but because they inspire us to grow, to mature, to transcend. It is as if the encounter with the other was, in fact, an invitation to encounter ourselves. And this journey is spiritual. It requires courage, dedication, and, above all, authenticity. You can't live a love of soul if you're still wearing masks. You can't sustain a deep bond if you're still afraid of being seen as you really are. Therefore, these connections demand more from us than any superficial relationship. They ask us for truth. They ask us for vulnerability. We are asked for a real presence, the one that does not pretend, does not manipulate, does not fear depth. There is a difficult lesson that all spiritual love teaches. True love knows how to leave, if necessary. Not for lack of affection, but out of respect for the freedom of the other and for the truth itself. In soul relations, possession has no place. Unhealthy attachment gives way to the desire for the other to flourish, even if it is far from us. This does not mean absence of pain. It means, rather, a love so high that it does not seek to bind, but to liberate. It is knowing how to recognize when the paths crossed only for a while. It is to understand that not all deep connections are eternal on the physical plane, although they are eternal on the soul plane. Jung speaks of individuation as the process by which we become who we really are. And sometimes, to follow this path, you have to let go. To give up a relationship that, although meaningful, is no longer healthy. Or accepting that the other's role in our life was only to remind us of something essential, not necessarily to remain forever. And here is the paradox of soul love. It is eternal in essence, but free in form. It can last a lifetime or just a few months. Time does not define its depth. What defines it is impact. What it changes. How much it transforms us. That's why, even when these connections end, they never completely disappear. They remain in us as sacred marks. Not as wounds, but as portals that opened and made us see beyond the veil of ordinary reality. Spiritual connections are not, in and of themselves, guarantees of harmony. They carry power, but they depend on consciousness to flourish. Finding a kindred soul is just the beginning. Sustaining this relationship requires choice, maturity, and working with each other. Many believe that, if it is destiny, it will be easy. But spiritual love, while natural, is not without its challenges. In fact, by touching our depths, it brings out all that needs to be healed. Therefore, it requires more courage than any other type of relationship. This is where purpose comes in. When two conscious people meet, they know that they are not just there to enjoy love, but to grow through it. They make bonding a path of evolution, a space for healing, learning, and transformation. These relationships become temples, not in the idealized sense, but in the real sense. Temples in which the shadow is welcomed, in which dialogue is constant, in which there is room for mistakes, as long as they are accompanied by responsibility and the desire to grow. And above all, these relationships have direction. They don't just live in the moment, but walk together towards something bigger. A project, a purpose, a shared vision of the world. Because spiritual love is not just emotion, it is action. It manifests itself in practical life, in the way two souls build something that benefits not only themselves, but the world around them. We live in times when individualism is exalted, and bonds are often superficial and disposable. But spiritual connections have the power to break this cycle. They remind us that we are not islands, we are part of something bigger, and that, by loving deeply, we also contribute to collective healing. Soul love is a revolutionary act. It rescues forgotten values, such as empathy, listening, truth, and compassion. It challenges the logic of consumption, which treats people as objects. He proposes another way of relating, based on presence, depth, and meaning. Carl Jung believed that the transformation of the world begins with the transformation of the individual. And in this sense, each conscious relationship is a seed of change. Every spiritual bond cultivated with truth is a light lit in the midst of darkness. When two souls unite with true love, they create an energy field that reverberates beyond themselves. They inspire others. They heal generations. They show that it is possible to love without dominating, to surrender without annulling oneself, to remain without imprisoning. This is the invitation of spiritual love, to transcend the ego and touch the eternal. To love from a place that recognizes the soul of the other as sacred, and in doing so, transform not only one's own life, but the world in which one lives.